Hello and welcome to the Navy Blue Corner. I'm Ian, joined as always by my good mate Lockie, and we are excited and honoured to be joined by a legend of the Carlton Football Club. He's a premiership player, a Norm Smith medalist. It is, of course, the great David Rhys-Jones. David, thanks for joining us, and how are you going?
No worries. Yeah, happy to be here. I'm doing better than the footy team at the moment, so which wouldn't be too bad, but all going well.
It's great to have you on, David. It's a privilege to chat with you, and it's an important time to do so. The month of May is Prader-Willi Syndrome International Awareness Month, a condition that's close to your heart, with your son Cooper being diagnosed at a young age. So for any of our listeners who may not be aware of it, could you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, look, Prader-Willi syndrome is basically a deletion or partial deletion of the 15th chromosome, and which causes, our chromosomes, what sort of piece us all together, sort of thing. And if you're missing something, then obviously something's not going to work. And the bit that doesn't quite work with him is the part of the brain that's affected is the hypothalamus, which is basically a regulator. It regulates the body temperature, our hunger, our thirst, that type of thing. And where a lot of people have heard of this condition is with the hunger side of it. And, it's been called a starvation syndrome as well, because the kids basically feel like they're starving all the time. It's, they can have a meal and still be hungry after it. So we have to lock fridges, lock the pantry, lock basically food away so we can keep him in a safe environment, so he can be with us a lot longer, of course.
Yeah, well, definitely a very serious one, and it's good to be, I guess, bringing awareness to this, particularly throughout this month. And across May, you'll be taking part in the 15 for 15 challenge to raise awareness and much needed funding as well for the Prader-Willi Syndrome Association Victoria. And look, previously you've done some grueling push-up challenges. David, what have you got in store this year for us?
Well, we've already started. We're halfway through actually at the moment. So it started, I think it was the 16th of May. It goes for 15 days. So 17th of May. So I think we're up to about day 9 now. And this year I've gone away from the physical side of things, and at my age I can't cope with that stuff too much anymore. But no, we're looking back with the Carlton historian, Tony DeBolfo and myself looked at the 15 highlights, or you might call them lowlights, of my playing career, and having a bit of a chat and a bit of fun about them. So anyone who wants to get on and have a look at them, go onto Facebook, David Rhys-Jones 26. Look up, it's a public profile page, and they can go through the 15 of them. Well, we're up to 9 tonight, so we'll get 9 of them in so far, and it's been a lot of fun doing it.
No, beautiful. That is very interesting. And basically all links to that will be in the show notes, or up on the screen currently if you're watching this one on YouTube. So head over to Facebook / David Rhys-Jones 26 to keep up and watch every single one of those. And look, if you can, please donate as well. The link to do that will also be in the show notes, be flashing up on front of your screen as well. And look, if you needed any more reason to donate, there is a sweetener as well thrown into this one. Every single person who donates, no matter how big or small, will go into the draw to win a VIP day at the footy for you and 3 friends as a guest of the AFL in the Medallion Club for any 2023 home and away season match for the remainder of this season. So it's a massive prize to be won. All the money goes to a great cause. And yes, all the links will be on the screen and in the show notes. So please give what you can.
Yeah,
definitely.
Thanks. Every little bit. The money raised goes to some research, and that just helps with all the families and the individuals who suffer with this condition. So every little bit helps. So dig deep. I know it's tough, and there's so many other things happening at the moment, and the cost of living and everything. It makes life tough, but if you can throw a few shekels that way, it'd be much appreciated.
Definitely. Yeah. No, it's a great cause, and we're super grateful to have you on, David, to help raise awareness for it. But of course, we'd be remiss not to chat a little bit of Carlton while we have you. We were fortunate to have you on our 100th episode earlier in the year, and listeners, if you haven't heard that one, definitely do. Ian and David did a great job kicking off the season. And we talked a lot about your career then. So we'd love to hear your kind of thoughts on the current team. You've already touched on a little bit of your feelings on it, but, how have you kind of judged the season so far, almost halfway in?
I might have to go back and look at that 100th episode, because I reckon I would have been a lot more positive then than I am now. But
the lids are off.
Yeah, look, it was, and they haven't been playing with any confidence lately. They just, they really devoid of any confidence and trust in each other, and making simple mistakes, and that can happen, but it can turn pretty quick too. So, I think the Sydney ground's going to suit. It'll suit our forwards. I think Charlie can. And, their back line's been decimated too. So, our big boys down there should really have a day out tomorrow night. But I'm heading up there, and I'm hoping that's the case. And
beautiful.
So I'll get up there tomorrow night. My daughter's lives up there, so and she's got my three grandkids up there. So I'll spend a weekend with them and have a bit of fun after celebrating a big win. It should be a big win tomorrow night.
Hopefully it is. No, it sounds good. Hopefully we can get the win for you. It's never nice to travel and get it the other way. That's for sure.
Well, if we get beat tomorrow, that's it. Season done and dusted. It really is. If they can't beat a decimated Swans lineup, Buddy's looking like he's age at the moment. So hopefully he doesn't pull one out. He might have one good game left in him. Hopefully it's not tomorrow night. But we really should win this pretty easy. They've been decimated with injuries, and we've got no excuses whatsoever.
I mean, you touched on turning it around, and this is what Ian and I have been grappling with for weeks after each loss. Like, do you feel like these issues of confidence that you speak of, they're things that can be turned around mid-season? Or do you feel like some of the issues we're having are more off-season things?
No, absolutely. They can be turned around, but it just comes with hard work and just, nose of the grindstone, nothing fancy, just hard work. And there's an old saying, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And that, it applies in everything. It applies in your life. It applies in football. And they really need to get back to working hard, get back to basics, do the little things. I mean, I'll be looking more at that tomorrow night, because I expect them to win pretty easily. But I'll be looking at how they go about it more so, because, we can belt the teams like West Coast and teams like that, but that's not going to get you in the finals. You've got to do it when the chips are down, and you've got to do the hard work. You've got to really work for each other. And they, I mentioned the confidence, but they don't seem to have a lot of trust in each other at the moment either. And that's a big thing, when you're playing, and in any relationship, I suppose trust is a pretty big thing. So it's important on the footy field as well. So let's hope that they can start really working harder tomorrow, get things happening, and get a good win.
No, 100%. And you kind of touch on it there, but I guess diving into a bit deeper, talking about the confidence and the belief. You were sort of played on both ends of the spectrum, playing for South Melbourne and Sydney, a side that was obviously struggling, and then moving over to Carlton and having such great success. I guess shifting it maybe to a little bit and talking about our leaders, and maybe that's where an area that some of the belief can sort of stem from. I guess looking at the Carlton group now, it looks like they're lacking that confidence and leadership on field. How much difference do you find that leadership does play and have a role, I guess, comparing it with your time at Sydney and then Carlton? Like, where is that sort of created? Is it from the playing group, and how much does having those successful players in the group work towards that?
Yeah, look, I was fortunate to have some great leaders. I mean, Barry Round up in Sydney was South Melbourne and Sydney was a fantastic leader, and led by example. He played. He was heart and soul of the club, and we probably didn't have the ability then, but you can still have a crack against when I was playing with the Swans, and I say we then, but I'm a Carlton person now, but. We beat Carlton in 82 and they went on to win the flag, and we beat Essendon when they went on to win the flag. So, there were some good efforts by the Swans players and back in those days. And it's if you haven't got the ability, it's hard to keep that standard up week in, week out. But going to Carlton, it was a completely different kettle of fish. You pulled the navy blue Guernsey on, you're expected to win, and it didn't matter how many injuries or what the situation was. the expectations were high, and so they should be. It's that was the great thing I got out of being down at Carlton in those early days was the expectation on winning, and the Swans you could play a team like Carlton and get beat by a few points, and your supporters would clap you off the field. I didn't like that myself. I wasn't one of those people who like losing at all. So getting to Carlton and being part of a winning culture was much better for my liking anyway.
When Ian, you go Ian.
No, I had absolutely nothing to add to that one, so go for it, Lockie.
I was going to say, when you interviewed David early in the year and asked about kind of the comeback from the heartbreak in 86 to win the flag in 87, and you spoke about kind of the strong leadership and having another year for Sticks and Bradley and the like to grow. So then kind of like comparing this to obviously how the season ended last year, do you think where we are now is a testament to that leadership kind of not coming through, or do you think there's other factors that are kind of affecting, us using that end of the season as a way to bolster this year? Because I think we hoped that ending of the season was like, this is going to make 2023 big.
Oh yeah, for sure. And you look at the individuals, I suppose, and our leaders, and you look at Cripper. He's probably not having as good a season as he had last year. I mean, while she's not as hasn't been as brilliant. Wiedering is probably not hasn't been as sharp and as good as he's been in the past. So we got some players down, but the good thing about it is they can improve and they can improve rapidly, and we know the heights that they can get to. So that's what they need to work hard to get to, and that's where the standard we need to set. And the back half of the year, you never know what can happen. I mean, I certainly haven't written finals off just yet, but tomorrow night is the key to that. Lose tomorrow night, and I'll concede. I'll give it up then. But overall, I think they'll be fine. They should. They should. Be able to start. They've really got to start tomorrow night. And as I said, it's the little things. It's going to be the chasing and the tackling and the pressure they apply and just getting a certain standard up. It's no good just going at belting the weaker teams or the depleted teams and then coming up against the better teams, because we've got Melbourne the week after and then Essendon. So we've got a couple of tougher ones coming up, and they need to get themselves in good nick for that.
Yeah, it definitely feels like there just really needs to be sort of collective buy-in, which sort of ties perfectly to the next question I had, which was, look, you were a very, very talented footballer, highlighted by the Norm Smith medal winning performance in the 87 grand final. But look, a side that always does get brought up is that tougher, more physical sort of eye for an eye part of it that did get the record for the most times being reported at 25 times. And look, a lot gets spoken about this, so I kind of want to go in a different perspective with this, and seeing as a fair few of those incidents were quite sort of sticking up for a teammate, and that eye for an eye where one of your mates gets taken out and you sort of go back into it and let it be known, pretty much highlighted by, I guess, like the Battle of Britain. So I kind of wanted to ask where that kind of sticking up for the teammates came from. Was that something that was always instilled into you, or was this something that was sort of emphasized by coaches or playing group within?
I think flying the flag for each other was part and parcel of how you played the game, and even how you looked after, whether it was a shepherd or blocks or different things, how you looked after players out on the ground as well. I mean, that's what good teams do, and I might have gone a little bit overboard at times, and it was part and parcel, that fly the flag attitude, and it served us reasonably well.
Yeah, no, and look, I guess like moving it towards Carlton of today, it does feel like there's a bit of disconnectedness, I guess, on field and lacking of playing for each other. Obviously, it's a little bit different. It doesn't happen the same way these days, but I don't tend to see a lot of running together and laying those shepherds and the blocks and getting the ball to a good position for the player. It seems like we're always giving it to someone under more pressure rather than trying to get around each other at the moment. And so I kind of wanted to get your perspective on, do you think that can be something that he's built within the playing group? Like, where does that tend to stem from? I know you've had experience coaching as well at North Launceston. Is that something that sort of can help come from a coach if you find that it's not there? Or where does that togetherness and connectedness of a team chemistry build from?
Well, it starts with the hard work. I mean, that's basically you have to work hard for each other, and the selfishness, I suppose, has got to come out of it. You know, you have to be unselfish and help your teammates, and whatever you can do, whether it is a block or a shepherd or whatever, to give your teammate a bit more space rather than hitting him in a hot spot and then trying to run on and get an easy kick down the field or whatever the case is. You know, you just try and make life easy for each other. And you know, I found, you know, when I went back to the back line later in my career that, you know, it was a real I sort of called it a team within a team. You know, I mean, you really had to work hard together to get success back there, because one weak link back there and one bloke running off doing what he wanted to do instead of doing the team things really can pull it apart. So yeah, but that's got to go right across the field, and you know, it starts with our leaders, and you know, as I said before, a few of them have been down on form this year, and we really need them to pick it up quickly. And the only way they're going to do it is just work their butts off.
Love it. All right, let's talk about tomorrow night. You're going to be heading up there, sitting in the stands with your fam, David. Whenever we preview a game, we like to put like a clear kind of one or two things that we want to see from the game. Can't be just a win. Not that I think that you'd say that. So when you're up there, what are you going to be thinking to yourself that you want to see from the game? Put your finger on one big thing.
Oh, look, I want our big forwards to dominate, which they should, because
good one.
You know, Sue McCartan's out, Rampy's not playing. I mean, they've really, you know, they're going to have no excuse whatsoever. So if we can get the ball in well to them and not just bomb it in there, be smart about the way we get in there. I can see Charlie kicking 8+ tomorrow night. You know, the Sydney cricket ground really is a ground for full forwards, and I'd play Harry. I'd play him right up the field, to be honest, because
love it.
His confidence in his kicking is well down, and his delivery inside 50, you know, is going to be a bonus sort of thing. So I'd rather him kicking into the 50 than actually having shots for goal. And but that also, you know, with Harry, you know, missing goals when it does go in there, that, you know, creates that extra layer of pressure too, because you work so bloody hard to get it down there, and all of a sudden it's wasted. So. So yeah, I'd like to see Harry play up, and it's a ground where you really can push up to the wings and through the midfield, and then, you know, you can pierce it through in that it's slightly smaller. So, you know, full forwards have kicked lots of bags of goals in Sydney. It is a ground where your key forwards can do very well. So if you're looking at having a little wager or something, I'd be betting on Charlie quite a few goals tomorrow.
We don't mind a little punch around here on the navy blue corner.
A little bit of a flutter.
Always bet responsibly, of course. Yeah.
Oh, of course.
Definitely. And make sure that if you do have anything laying around, make sure you donate it to the Prader-Willi Association first, and then anything left over onto Charlie kicking a couple. And look, we do have another segment, so you may have answered this one, but we often look for the sort of a bit of an opposition analysis and into sort of the keys of winning and trying to nail one or two things that are the keys to that victory. You may have nailed it there. We're talking about the forwards, but is there anything else that you can kind of see that if we execute this will lead to a big victory for the Blue Boys?
Yeah, well, it's the midfield. I mean, the Swans, that's really been their strength for quite a number of years now, and their midfield's pretty good. I think Mills is out. He's key to them too, so it's handy having him out. So that battle's going to be right on, and you know, Paddy Cripps, we need him to start finding some of that. And the only way he's going to do it is just pushing through contests. I want to see him get a bit angry tomorrow night. I like Cripper when he gets a little bit angry, and, you know, he should be a bit dirty on himself, to be honest, the way he's going at the moment. But hopefully, you know, not too angry. I don't want him getting rubbed out or anything, but angry enough to inspire his teammates and help us to a good win.
Couldn't agree more. A contentious one around Carlton fans always is team selection. So I'm keen to hear what your thoughts have been on that this year, and the changes have just come out for this game. So DeConing, Kemp, and Hewitt are coming in. Silvani, Young, and Curnow out. Are there any guys in the twos or anything that you're kind of wanting to see, or have you found team selection?
Oh, look, I've been staggered that Paddy Dow hasn't got a game this year. I think we've got some deadwood running around on that forward line that he couldn't do any worse than what they're doing at the moment. So and you've got to reward good players in the twos. I mean, otherwise, what do you got a seconds team for? Why? Because it's the whole thing where they the players are going, geez, how good was Paddy Dow today, and he can't get a game. What hope have I got? And so it can be like that with players, but so that's been the real one surprise, and there's quite a few players who could have gone out for him. So
for sure,
and he could, he wouldn't have done any worse than what they're doing anyway. So that's been the one real one that's stuck with me. But the rest of it, I think, Jack Silvani's out this week. That'll be a bit of a blow for the Silvani family. They got another reason to hate us, I suppose, now. But that's I think that's not a bad move though, because DeConing coming in that forward ruck role, I think he's going to be better value than Jack. So and Jack has been in great form.
Agreed.
Lewis Young started the year fantastically, but like a lot on the back line, just really dropped away over the last few weeks.
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't hurt going back. I mean, I don't know why they don't drop more players at times, because it's a shake-up. It's a shake-up for the whole team. It's not just the player who gets dropped. It shows, I mean, sometimes you drop a good player who's just out of form, and it shakes them up and say, gee, I mean, we need to pull our finger out. I could be next. So, but I can't say I've been happy with the selection over the course of the year. But anyway, it is what it is, and they seem to stick with what they've got.
Yeah, no, it's good to sort of set that standard and then reward the guys in the twos. That's been the interesting thing with Paddy Dow, and I think you nailed it when you said it probably can't be much worse, and that's probably been our sort of stance on it. We're not thinking that Paddy Dow is going to come in and be the greatest player of all time, but when the midfield mix doesn't seem to be working and a guy's getting 40 every week, just reward him for 2 weeks, and it just doesn't seem like there's anything bad that can, I guess, happen off the back of that. But so before we let you go, I really wanted to get your thoughts on one other player, because hopefully there is this man can do a bit of justice for the great number 26 in Lockie Cowan, because look, since you left, I don't want to be too harsh on some of the other ones, but no one's really got to the class of you really in that number. And I know it's a small sample size, but I guess, what do you think he can do for us? And what can we sort of get excited about this guy? Because there's also a bit of a link as well. I believe he played at North Launceston, which is a side that you captain coached and won a flag at. So what are you sort of thinking with a Lockie Cowan so far?
Yeah, look, I thought he was fantastic early, and he has a crack. That's one thing you got to like about him. So it's been 31 years since I retired, and there's not one name underneath it that's played 100 games since then. So I'd love to see another name, and young Lockie Cowan. Hopefully it's him, because he plays with a bit of aggression, which I like, and he's got something about him. So I think he's going to be a very, very good defender, and hopefully he's back in the team sooner rather than later, because I thought he was terrific, early days, but obviously kids, and they run out of steam a little bit. We've even seen with Hollands a bit. I'm surprised he hasn't been rested. Just give him a match off sort of thing. He relies so heavily on his running, and he's looking a bit dour now rather than how fresh he was early in the season. So sometimes you've got to rest these kids and give them a break, and maybe even throw them back in the twos for a game or two and freshen them up and get them back in there.
Yeah, no, it's definitely nice to see him get that bit of taste of AFL footy, and definitely looked definitely at the level. But look, David, thanks so much for giving up your time. Good luck with the rest of the 15 for 15 challenge. Remember, again, catch all of David's interviews featuring his 15 career highlights. He said lowlights, but I don't reckon there's too many of those, to be honest. I reckon they're all highlights. Links to all of those will be in the show notes, and links to donate as well to the Prader-Willi Syndrome Association Victoria. It's a great cause. David, thanks so much again for joining us.
No worries, guys. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to create a bit of awareness about the condition as well. That's as important. Thank you.
Anytime, mate. Thank you.
Go on.
How good was that, Lockie? Mate, I wish we could have a former Carlton player on every one of these pods. Just incredible insight.
Absolutely. And he is Fev. No, that's it for today. Maybe next week. See how we go.
Yeah, well, but now, unfortunately, like the listeners are going to be stuck with us for the rest of this episode. You just watch at whatever time this is right now. We'll look up the stats and it'll just got to crash. The listeners, the viewers are going to crash from now onwards. But look, Davis told us what he wanted to see from this game. Lockie, I've got to throw it to you. What do you want to see from this game against the Sydney Swans?
Didn't he just hit the nail on the head with all of his takes?
He did.
He's clearly very passionate and very connected to the team right now, which we love to see. It's hard for me not to steal his because it was so spot on. Like you will. Like, so I will. I'm gonna call it out because it's. I mean, don't you just kind of feel like the other way that if Harry and Charlie aren't firing in this game, then we're done. Like, it just feels like something that we have to see. But then I'll go to the other end. I think the thing that I really want to see is our defense starting to hold up like they were last season. At the start of this season, we've seen to lose our way over this kind of stretch. So I'm hoping that this gives us an opportunity to kind of revitalize that. And we look back on this game and go, wow, our defense is back.
And that's a good one. That is a good one. I don't know if mine, you might disagree. You might say this doesn't count. It's not specific.
This is good
enough. This is a cop out. But what I want to see.
I would never call you out like that.
Oh, you wait a couple of seconds. I'm asking for something different because I'm sick, Lockie, of just seeing the same game week in, week out, because it feels like that's what it is. The last month or so of footy, it's been the same thing. We've lost the same way. We've played the same way. I haven't seen too many glimpses of anything. So I'm hoping this week that there is something I can take from this game of football that I can go, I haven't seen that this year. Whether it's an individual performance, whether it's a passage of play, the way we move the ball, I'm throwing it out broad because so many of it, when we go specific in this segment, it's there the next week because it hasn't been ticked off. So maybe if I go broad enough, this one doesn't have to be there next week. So hopefully we can see something different this week.
Yeah, well, that's a scary foreshadowing if we are sitting here on Monday and nothing was different.
Oh,
not a single thing. Disaster. So I feel like you're going to be able to tick that one off. So maybe a little bit of a cop out because we do like that little dopamine boost when we can say, yes, we saw that thing.
Tick it off.
But that's okay. We'll take what we can get.
Allow it. Beautiful. Well, look, and we want to hear from you guys as well. So if you are watching this on YouTube, hit that like button, hit the subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Then jump into the comments and let us know what you want to see from the game. If you're listening on your preferred streaming and podcasting platform, then head over onto the socials at Navy Blue Corner and tweet at us, message us wherever you want. We're on there at Navy Blue Corner and let us know what you want to see from the game because we love hearing from you, which is another beautiful segue straight into the listener questions. We chucked them out on Twitter this week. So it's the easiest way for you guys to get your name read out on this and your beautiful question for us. What have the people asked us this week, Lockie?
As we always get on a Thursday evening when we record, plenty of talk about the changes, which we talked about with David earlier. So here's an interesting one from Brad Nickel. Is it time to see Fogarty back in the frame? His one and only game last year in round 2 didn't jump off the page, but he was serviceable and surely will give us something more than what Durden and Motlob have given us. He's listed as an emergency currently.
He could be the sub. Who knows? They might do a cheeky laid out and he does pop into this one. And it's an interesting thing because I thought about him a while ago, like early in the season. when I was just angry at everything and I was making 7 changes. He was one that was just in for the sake of, I want someone out. And hadn't thought of him much until did the selection table show on a Tuesday night, 6 p.m. on Pommy in Oz. There, getting all the plugs out here. It's one of those episodes. But
it's good.
The people I was with, I can't remember exactly who pointed out, but someone was saying, what about Lockie Fogarty? Should he come in? Because we're not getting enough out of Motlop. We're not getting enough out of Durden. And we stumbled across trying to see, well, who could come out if he comes in and what does it look like? And it was interesting. And I kind of convinced myself through this of, well, Durden was really good at bringing the pressure in the Collingwood game, not hitting the scoreboard, but he was one of our highest tackle getters on the day. And Motlop, with that banana or whatever he was doing, the snap from bloody 40 out on a set shot, that's almost a sackable offence. So we're thinking, imagine if you have Durden there for the pressure. Fogarty's known for his pressure. And see if that can actually create some goals. Just having this manic pressure in that forward line. The amount of times the opposition can just walk it out. The amount of times there's those kick-ins that it's one kick and all of a sudden they're in the middle of the ground because our forward half pressure hasn't been there. Having him in there with a Durden and maybe some other guys around there applying the pressure could maybe give us a different look. And I don't mind it. And while I don't think that the ceiling's obviously there for a Fogarty, and I'm not too sure if he's going to be hitting the scoreboard a lot, at the moment, the other smalls aren't. So I kind of am at that stage in this season, seeing what we've seen, wanting something different. I've no issue with Fogarty coming in for a game or two and just seeing what the mix is like. And maybe this manic pressure, maybe kind of like what a Richmond were during their, 3 grand finals there. Maybe that's what we need. Maybe we need this manic pressure. Where do you kind of see the Lockie Fogarty discussion and who would maybe make way? Because obviously always is in there with his goal kicking, but what happens with the other two?
Yeah, I like everything you said there. I've spoken for a while when we've had the 3, I guess, whatever you want to call them, dedicated small forwards. It doesn't feel like we ever get enough from all 3.
Yeah.
And we have different expectations for them to other players. I get that. Like, they don't need to be getting 15 touches every game. But, yeah, Motlop is definitely the one for me that I am open to them experimenting with that position with other players. And so, I mean, you could say this about so many players on our list. Like, happy to see them get a crack for 2 or 3 weeks to see if they can do something. Like Kemp got. And now he's back in to have another go, which is great. So, yeah, if he's the sub, I'm not upset. And if he gets a game in that Motlop role, I wouldn't be upset either.
Yep. It's a good one. I like it.
I like it. Thanks, Brad. Mick P. Are we only playing Mitch McGovern because of the contract he is on? His last 5 weeks have been hardly VFL standard. Seems almost scared in marking contests.
It's an interesting one. I don't think the contract has anything to do with it. I think if there's any contract that would mean we're maybe looking to play someone, you'd probably say it'd be De Koning, like wanting to either get his market value up or keep him happy so he can re-sign him. I don't think anything else has much to do with it, but I would agree in the fact that I don't think that McGovern's been playing well recently. We haven't seen that big intercept marking. The one thing I do like about it is he's probably the only key tool that when he does get the ball, he's immediately looking to move it, where I think Young and Wiedering have struggled in that sense. And it's difficult. Like, there's so many, it'd be easy to rattle off and quicker to rattle off the guys that are playing well compared to the guys that aren't, because it's like 90% of this team are out of form currently. And looking at those key backs, it was, well, who's making way? And with Sam Durden not being available and playing any form in the twos, probably makes it harder to shift out a Wiedering and a more taller defender. I thought Kemp would potentially come in this week for McGovern, even though I probably would have dropped Young or Wiedering first. So it's interesting that we've decided to go Young instead, and maybe that means McGovern is more accountable, and maybe that's what he needs this week. I don't know. I know Sydney are obviously a bit smaller in their forward line, so it allows you to make some different changes. But yeah, I guess on form, like, there's a lot of guys that could be dropped and a lot of guys that maybe shouldn't be playing. And right now I'm just hoping that either the guys out of form can quickly switch, or maybe a Kemp plays really well and then they go, okay, well, he played that role perfectly. Gov, you're out, Young's back in. Who knows? But again, like the Fogarty discussion, I'm very open to have guys come in and out of this first team.
Do you not see Wiedering as an undroppable player?
I don't currently. On form, no.
Who would you say?
Maybe that's true a hot take right now, but
yeah, I don't know. I'm just curious. Like, do you think anyone is undroppable? Like, I'm saying I don't think there's. Like, I don't know what I would need to see from him to not want to have him in the team. I'm not saying he's playing well, but
okay,
like as a leader of our team,
yeah. I think
that's
guys
probably in the team that would be undroppable to you ever.
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Cripps is never going to play a VFL game.
He probably won't, but I don't know if that, like, I don't know. For me, at the moment where our leaders aren't performing and I'm seeing Jacob Wiedering make the same mistakes weekly of gets the ball too slow to make the decision, then takes what was a safe option that's no longer safe, turns it over. And he's devoid of confidence. And it's hard for him. And this is where you just need to be in the four walls and know that he seems down on confidence. Things aren't working. Would dropping him to the twos be so much worse for his confidence? And is he that kind of player that, and it's the balance of standards and making a statement and building their confidence. And it's so hard to know exactly what to do with that. But on form, and this is the hard thing, the issue is we don't have anyone that could really come in. If Sam Durden was in the VFL playing how he did in that Richmond VFL game where it was pretty much like best on, then I would be potentially asking the question of, hey, this guy's not performing.
Wow.
A leader is making errors. Is this where we need to make the statement of Wiedering, you're out? And then see if that has the kick on for the playing group. That's kind of where I stand. Like, no one's undroppable for me, because I would like to hope that if someone's form's that bad, that you can kind of make that statement with it and hold them to standards. But currently I can't see Wiedering going out just because we don't have anyone to be close to his worst standard.
Yeah. Yeah, I respect that. I'm not super passionate on that take, but yeah, it's interesting to think about because like it hasn't been good. And so, yeah, maybe there will come a time. Like, I guess how many, I don't know, do you want to say terrible, bad performances in a row can you have before there's that integrity? But we'll see. Hopefully we won't have to deal with that, because my will we see it is going to come true. And he's going to be Bog. Speaking of Bog, super bad. How much of this game will be decided by the rucks and the midfield? Seems like both teams have been struggling out of there. Surely Big Pitto taps it down Cooper's throat and straight to Charlie first bounce. Oh, music to my ears.
It's what I want to see. And yeah, look, that is, if you get a bit of a quick preview towards my very short and very brief opposition analysis / keys to winning.
Get into it.
Midfield is genuinely... Oh, let's go for it. Let's pivot. We love a pivot.
Stuff the run sheet.
Throw it out, tear it up. Who needs it? We're about doing things differently this week. And that's it, because the midfield's the big key thing for me. Because if you look at everything else, if you look at their defense, their back line, I'm talking about Sydney here, decimated through injury. No Rampy, none of the McCartans. If your name's McCartan, you're injured at the moment. So watch out if that's your last name listening to this. Some might have an injury. But look, exploit the key backs because they're not that tall. They're not playing amazingly at the moment. So how do you exploit that midfield? Get the ball in there fast, work it through, give your forwards the best amount of opportunity. So that's why the midfield battle is so important in this one. They don't have Mills, but they've still got some quality players in there. It's going to look a bit better until Hickey came back. They didn't really have a great ruckman in there, but maybe he's a bit underdone. We've got DeConing and Pitnet, so we can maybe overwork them in that facet. You look at the midfield, they've got Parker, Warner, Golden, Rowbottom. You can throw Heaney and Papley in there a little bit. So they've got enough talent. So we need to win that contest, get the ball going our way, and I think we'll get the victory pretty easy for getting the ball in. And then conversely, looking at Sydney's forwards, they're lacking down there with height too. They don't have Reid, McDonald, Amadi. They don't even have him out there. So look, they've still got Buddy. He's aging. They've got McLean, who's okay, can do some damage. But their strength at the moment is their smalls. I think is where I'd tend to look at it. They've got Heaney, they've got Papley. Those guys are good. When the ball hits the ground, it feels like our defense at the moment struggles when the ball hits the ground. And they've even got a guy like a Will Hayward that is one to watch for me if there was a player to highlight for Sydney, because he's more mid-sized. And weirdly, I feel that's an area we sometimes struggle to defend against. So that's something I'd have a look at for Carlton to focus on. But with their forwards, the only way they're going to really hurt us is if the ball's moved in quick into space like what Collingwood did. Those really easy forward entries. So yeah, overall, it's like we need to be beating them. They're depleted. Got a lot of injuries. They're down on form. Mate, they're only beaten North Melbourne because of an an interchange infringement. Like they're not playing good football, and it's their midfield battle because of that. Exploit their lack of tools in defense, and then we just got to limit the easy entries into the D50. And I think the game is ours. It's very simple, and that kind of sums it up for me. As far as that opposition analysis, the keys to winning, it is winning that midfield battle because they're struggling everywhere else.
I love it as always, mate. I feel like whenever we look at a specific player and we go, oh, this is like such a good setup for them, they don't end up delivering for us.
Yeah.
But when I think about TDK coming back into this team with how Sydney's lined up, like just such a massive opportunity, I think, for him to actually put his stamp on a game and maybe, can he be that third tall forward? Like what we hoped from the start? Like, I don't know whether it can work, but it feels like a game like this is where he could, I guess, prove himself.
Yeah. And it's interesting as well, like just touching just quickly again on their like forward line, knowing that they're not super tall and they don't have these massive key tools really that are firing and dominating. I feel like we play better against that. We struggle against these sides that have a lot of mid-sized, smaller forwards. Like even though Brisbane have the tools, like we were fine with those, but it was the smalls that dominated us. St Kilda, they had a plethora of small, mid-sized, dynamic forwards that did it. And even against Collingwood, like it wasn't their tools.
True.
Like Myercheck, he plays so differently, being able to move a lot more around the ground. And that's what hurts us. So that's my worry a little bit, knowing that their probably strength is Heaney and Papley. So I think if you can really, again, just stop the source, stop it even getting down there, then you don't have to worry about the problem. So it just means why this midfield battle is so vital to this game.
Say less.
I will next time. What other fan questions do you have for us?
I've got one more that I want to read out, and it's kind of a lead into the Ian, end of show pump up, for want of a better name for that segment.
Well, we've still got a little bit we need to chat on the team changes. So did you want to save that one and build me up? Build it up?
This is what I'm saying. We're on the same page, brother. We're
I like
here.
that.
Let's talk changes.
Right. Let's talk team changes. So we've touched on them already. Who's coming in and who's coming out. Lockie, what were the changes that you would have made this week if you were on the selection panel?
Well, you know me, and you know that I will never ask for more changes than you do.
I've got a lot, so it'd be hard to.
Oh, really? I'd just written down two. I was going to go definitely TDK in for Sauce and then Hewitt for Curnow. Not saying that I disagree with the Kemp and Young one. I think hindsight's always 20/20, but when I look at the lineups, it makes sense that this would be a game that we could have a little bit less height down there. But then the other thing I thought about was maybe having Fisher as the sub, which is off the table. But that was me.
Yeah, look, very similar. Definitely had Sauce coming out because of, I think, just the form he's in at the moment and the makeup of that forward line. Yeah. Getting a new second ruckman in there into Koning, that was one of them. Also had Hewitt coming in, Ed coming out. And then I think Ollie Hollands just needs a bit of a rest. He probably needed it last week, if not the week before. So I took him out, and then I've given a debut to Jackson Binns. And maybe this is too much of a baptism of fire for a real must-win game away from home. Is that the best thing to be throwing a debutant into? But I don't know. I think you need to reward form at some stage. And if I'm taking Hollands out, he's basically the guy I want in. He's not just going to be a one and done. He'll be in there for 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks to get a good run at it, regardless, I guess, on how he's playing. Just for the confidence, you don't want to bring a guy in for a match and then say, that's it, you're out. I just don't think that does anything. So that would have been my change to give Hollands a bit of a rest because he's been subbed the last few weeks. And then my other change as well was I got spoken and talked into Motlop out, Fogarty in. That was basically my other one to see what it would look like with the real chaotic pressure forward line. And then I was like you, I wanted Fisher as my sub. I want someone that's going to impact the game or ideally impact the game front of center. I don't like this midfielder, big body midfielder being the sub, being a Kennedy, a Hewitt, or an Ed Curnow. And maybe that's what Fisher needs. Like you look at him in the twos and you kind of just know what you're going to get from him. I'm not too sure how much he's going to be doing in the twos that you go, okay, now definitely bring him in. So maybe him as a sub could sort of spark the confidence a little bit more in doing that. And like I did think about, does a Kemp come in for a McGovern? Does he come in for a Young? Wasn't on my changes by the end of it, but I don't have too much of an issue with it being done. So I guess off this crop we've got on our emergencies at the moment between Ed, JSOS, Young, and Fogarty, who would your ideal sub out of those guys be and why, Lockie? And if you're listening or watching this, let me know what your changes would have been and who is the sub. At Navy Blue Corner, like, subscribe, follow, all of those plugs in there.
Yeah, I'll have a little sip of the Fogarty Kool-Aid that's being splashed around everywhere. Why not? It definitely doesn't make sense to me for it to be Young. Curnow, we know what we're getting there. So I think it would be between Sauce and Fogarty for me. So I'll go with Fogarty. But one other thing to call out when I was trying to think of my changes, like again, it felt like a couple of years ago, maybe when we were losing and our injury list was through the roof, we could always kind of have this excuse about if only we could bring this guy in, if only we could bring this guy back in. It's just another reminder of how healthy we are right now and like players that I like are not getting in this team. So it's just another reason why we shouldn't have any excuses for this game. But Fogarty for me, and I think it will be.
Yeah, it probably makes more sense if I'm saying like the impact, but I also don't mind Silvani. I think it's definitely between the two. The Silvani one, maybe you look at it in the sense of it might be I believe it's wet over in Sydney. So if the game is struggling for the talls per se, is that where maybe you sub out a Pitnet or a De Koning and go, okay, like maybe it's just a little too tall and Sauce comes in and plays that role in the second half? I feel like him as the sub, like he came in was it the Adelaide game, I think it was, as the sub and actually looked quite good. Maybe that's what he needs, like I'm saying a Fisher. But I'll probably, even though I've said that, I'll go Fogarty, but I think that it's definitely between those two. If it's Ed again, I don't know what to do as a Carlton fan anymore.
What are you going to do?
It feels like such a personal vendetta against him because everything to do with seeing him existing with this Carlton Football Club at the moment is sending me so angry. Like I almost need to get some kind of counselling around just Ed Curnow and calming down because just the thought of him gets me angry. Should we pass him? I'm sick of discussing him. I want something else. He does not offer anything as a sub.
I think we need to
I'd rather Lewis Young be thrown into the midfield as a sub than Ed Curnow being anywhere near this 22. And that's ridiculous to even say.
Yeah. I feel like I want to go back and listen to what we spoke about in the preseason with it because I'm pretty sure we would have been sitting there being like, well,
it was VFL captain is what we wanted.
If we've got any kind of health, just can't see how he's kind of getting near it. Anyway, we'll see.
It's an interesting one. But let's get maybe some positivity into this with another one of our favorite segments. Let's go off the Carlton for a little bit before we build you back up with that last listener question and then the final maybe pump up from us here. Let's pivot to the footy tips. Now, this is so interesting this week, Lockie. I cannot believe how interesting.
I'm so ready to get into it.
This is this week because this is really for the long time listeners. Now, we're in the Carlton Cheer Squad footy tipping. We've changed the way that this is done every single week. This was me finally taking the reins back over because Lockie didn't hit his 7 out of 9, which was the benchmark that we said. You have to hit this or you're out. Now, what's interesting, Lockie, I got 6 out of 9 this week. Started off unbelievably hot.
6?
With the Port Adelaide there. So now if we were doing the regular scale, I wouldn't be tipping this week. But you last minute changed how this was done. You said if there's a green arrow saying that we've moved up the ranks
on my face,
you get to stay on. And we don't worry about how many you got out of 9. And you won't believe it.
6 moved us up.
We are up. I don't know what we were last week, but we are 161 out of 309. And I'm looking at a beautiful green triangle pointing north. I am back in the hot seat. And I'm going to say...
Great. I just want to
butt in here. Go for it.
Don't act like this is pure rivalry.
It is.
My number one goal is to take out this league and show that we're the kings of the cheer squad. That's what I want. Yeah. And however we get there, that the ends justify the means for me here, mate. You could tip the whole season if it means that we get there and we get I don't even know what the prize is, but you know,
it is. If you finish first, second, or third, it is a Carlton jumper signed by the whole team. Not only first, you get it for second, you get it for third. That's what we're vying for here. So if you're getting jealous that you're not involved in this tipping competition, I'm sure we'll be in it next year. You can join too. I can't even remember. It's not too much. It's like $20 or something to enter. Massive prize. And you can yell at us and come at us every week, but be like, I'm 160th. So you're behind me, and you can send us a little bit towards that. But look, looking at this is all I'm saying is, I'm a bit upset in my 6 out of 9 because of this rivalry that we've built up in the footy tips. I felt like I couldn't 100% go with what I wanted because you would laugh at me if I got it wrong.
Are you serious?
Which is ridiculous because I wanted to go Freo over Geelong, but I sort of started to talk about it and you were like, making all these comments, making all these noises, being all the eye roll. And I was like, well, I've got to go Geelong then because I can't get this wrong. And then all of a sudden, Freo win, and I've tipped Geelong, and I look like an idiot. So this week for the tips, we're going with the guts, we're going with the heart, we're going with the head, we're doing it all, and we're of course starting it with Carlton have beaten Sydney. Now we normally go with the lovely 11. Do we go 111 here? What? How big am I going with it? I'm going to say 27 points. Let's go for it. I reckon.
Well, the hyphen said that Charlie's kicking 8, so that's a good start. You think 27 points in the wet? That's what I'm saying. Okay.
I want to go higher, but yeah, I think you got to pay the percentages in this to get those points. Is what I'm doing here, but I don't mind it.
Very confident.
St Kilda versus Hawthorn. Now, as I say this, I haven't seen any of the actual ins and outs this week of anyone else. I've only focused on Carlton, but I'm going to go St Kilda. Let me know if there's anyone big out from either of the teams that could potentially sway these. But I think St Kilda will beat the Hawks. Nice and easy.
I'm going to do that.
Melbourne versus Freo. I just cannot see Melbourne not winning this unless it turns out half their team's out. No, or Oliver's out. Nah, Freo can't get in that. Freo can't. No chance. Geelong will beat GWS. It's GMHBA. I don't care if the rest of their lineup is out. There is no way. They've got Big Sam de Koning in. Hoyson Sauce is apparently in their team. Oyston Mullen, I don't know who that is. Debut, so good on him, and I've absolutely roasted him. So yeah, he's in, so that means they're winning. We go to TIO Stadium, one of the greats, one of the classics. Gold Coast versus the Dogs. I need to actually see who's in and out.
Nothing too exciting.
Nothing.
Nick Holman's game, though.
I'm going Gold Coast. I just have a feeling Gold Coast will get up here. I like it.
You feel like they'd do it for Nick?
Why not? He's a former bagger, so you got to get it done. Now, I cannot tip West Coast here. It feels like if there was a week to do it, it'd be this week with everything going on. The media are like, he's taken a 3-month break, Adam Simpson. And then West Coast Twitter is literally like the actual social media account of West Coast goes, that's bullshit. He's staying. Feels like that's the week to tip West Coast, but I can't do it. I cannot.
Can I change your mind with 2 words?
Yep.
Chesser out.
Oh, I thought you were going to say in. That's how much I have not been paying attention to West Coast. He's been playing this whole time. Elliot Yeo back in. Shannon Hearn back in. Gee, there's some good ins.
Barras.
Oh,
come on, Ian.
And Sniv's been taken out of Essendon. Andrew Phillips is no longer in there.
This is what I'm saying.
Okay.
They're so due.
Should we? No. Richmond versus Port Adelaide.
Good discussion.
I've got to go Richmond. New coach. They've got to do it. How many times has this happened? They've just lost Dimmer. I don't even care who's out. I don't even care. Don't even look at it. Marvel Stadium, Collingwood versus North. Unfortunately, it's Collingwood. Adelaide versus Brisbane. Gee, this is tough. This does need a little bit of a look at the teams. I'll scroll down to this. What have we got? Daniel Rich back in. Gee, they've got half the team in. I understand it's the Sunday games. Barry out. Ooh. I'm going to...
Could be a good game.
It should be a good game. Weirdly, it feels like an underdog. I'm going to tip Brisbane. I reckon that if anyone can beat Adelaide, it'll be them, even though it feels different. But those are the tips for this week. That is exciting. I'm back in the hot seat. Let's see if I can continue the growing trend of whenever Ian gets the tip, we go up in the rankings. Doesn't matter if I get 1 out of 9. I'm going up at least one place.
I think you've tipped every favourite, so that's pretty exciting from you. Good.
That's good.
Well done.
That's good.
Thanks for keeping it fresh.
9 out of 9.
At least I try and add some excitement to this segment. But all right, all we want is the green arrow.
It's all right after. I'm pretty sure Gold Coast aren't favourites to beat the Doggies. Sure.
No, Gold Coast aren't favourites. You got me.
There you go. Got one. So let's get this last listener question squeezed into this one that will hopefully lead towards finishing this beautiful episode that, I wish we had David back because I need a good pump up from him.
From our friend Cam Oxford. Should we win this game? No time like right now for a dirty one. We just have to get it done. Should we win? I think your answer is yes.
Well, see, last week it felt like I started off the pump up with a very big negative, and I'm going to do it again. I'm going to continue this trend. If we don't win this, I don't think we can make the 8. I'm very much on the David Rhys-Jones train in that where looking at the situation, how depleted Sydney are, it feels like this is that one that we need to just get it done any fashion, and that'll spark us back up for the rest of this season, right before the bye, get a couple of these wins ticked off. So it feels like if we don't win this, it's really a massive issue. Like you look at last week, they looked awful against North Melbourne. I don't know if you watched that game, but they just did not look good. It was pretty bad viewing. So it feels like this is a game we have to win. But I don't know. For me, it doesn't really matter how. Like I'm not ridiculously concerned with how we get it done. I know I said I want something different, and I do. And I hope that the way we go about it is different and we can start building towards being better. But I just need a win at this stage. I think the boys do. Like, I don't care if there's a Sydney interchange infringement and we get a goal and we win it. Like, just give me the 4 points, get to the bye, and then we can go from there. That's how I'm feeling. How are you feeling about the must win versus the season over and putting that into the one game? Because I know that's not normally your vibe, so I'm keen to get your thoughts.
You're right. No, you're right. And it isn't going to be for this one either. Like, I don't know, just looking at it mathematically like a nerd. So what we won 4 games after the bye last year, and we missed out by a couple of points. So we would be 4.5 wins halfway into the season if we lose this one. So I'm definitely not going to have lost all faith. But yeah, I mean, but that's not to say that all the writing isn't on the wall for why we should win this one and why it will make it all the more disappointing. I think last week was kind of the most the wind had been taken out of my sails this season because I was so confident and when I probably shouldn't have been. And I shouldn't have been as disappointed
I tried to tell you.
I know. But you just have that blind faith sometimes. But this one isn't a blind faith. This one is, there's so many pieces there for why we should do it. So I'm just going to manifest the win.
No, and I think that's it. And I think that is the perfect place to kind of wrap this episode up. Like, this is a must win. Backs against the wall, pressure in a different way. And I have absolute belief this week that it's going to get done. I'm looking at this team on paper and a Kemp comes back into it after probably harshly dropped in a way. Didn't think he was that poor. He comes in, Lewis Young gets thrown out and he's going, I'm fighting for my career a little bit here. I believe he's out of contract at the end of the year, so he's got a lot to play for.
Yep.
So many of these other guys have been down on form, and this is their week. The conditions are right. It's away from home, a bit of a circuit breaker out of Melbourne. Go up to Sydney, New South Wales, where no one cares about footy. Get away from it, and then you look at everything else. TDK comes back into the team. He's fighting for everything as well. There's so much about this, so many little narratives involved. They've got no tall forwards that don't have the key defenders. We can absolutely exploit them, and we're bloody going to. Forget the 27 points, make it 127. I'm excited for this one. It's nice to be able to get this one done earlier in the week as well, so you can just sit back and enjoy your weekend after the Baggers have decimated the Swans. But a few things I do need to quickly touch on before I wrap this up. Get hyped for the match. Open your wallets if you can, please. David Rhys-Jones, obviously onto this earlier, talking about the Prader-Willi syndrome and the 15 for 15 challenge. Much more important things than football and everything that we tend to talk about on here. So if you do have any 100%. Money, please, obviously, we understand that it's hard to do quite a lot at the moment, but even if it's $1, feel free to donate. Again, the links will be on screen. Links will be in the show notes to this one, and make sure you're watching over on David Rhys-Jones 26 on the Facebook as well. Links everywhere to that one. There'll be some great insight into his 15, definitely highlights of his AFL career. There's a bunch up there already as we're halfway through the month of May, but there's still some to come. So make sure that you are on top of all of that. Follow the links, please. And if you're new to the podcast and didn't hear our very in-depth interview with him going through his career, link will be with that in the show notes as well, or just go onto your streaming service and bloody YouTube. It'll be on there. Type it in. You don't have to click. Use your fingers, right? David Rhys-Jones, Navy Blue Corner, 100th episode. It'll be there. Listen to it. It was a beautiful chat. But that's going to wrap it up this week. Go the bloody Baggers. Get the W. Turn this season around. See you guys next time.